Welcome, everyone. I'm Joseph Huberman, Vice President for Club Services. I'd like to welcome you to OUSA's monthly forum. Tonight's forum is on virtual reality orienteering. During the presentation, you can put questions in the chat, and after the presentation, we'll have time for you to ask questions. If you want to speak, please raise your hand and keep your microphone off until you're called on. This program is being recorded, and if you don't want to be recorded, please turn off your camera and mic or leave the meeting. The presentations have a lot of detail, so you should change the following settings in Meet so you can see as much detail as possible. Click the three dots at the bottom. Select Adjust View and change it to Spotlight. Select the three dots again and then select Full Screen. Also, you can hide the messages unless you need them. Eli Jimenez is going to make the presentation. Eli, are you ready to go?
I am ready to go, Joseph.
Okay, well, take it away.
Okay, great. Let me go ahead. Okay, let me confirm first that you're able to see my slides.
Looks good.
Awesome, great. Okay, so as Joseph said, my name is Eli. I'll be sharing a short presentation with the demo that'll last in total 20 to 25 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions. The goal today is simple, is to make you aware of the project that we're working on. This is an early stage effort, but we believe in building in public to the target persona, and also provide you an opportunity to get involved if you so see fit. So from an agenda perspective, I'll introduce myself. I'll start with a quick introduction, a bit about myself and the journey that led us to this project. Next, I'll share what we're building and the why. I'll then give a demo, a first-person view of what that VR experience looks like. Then we'll touch on the roadmap at a very high level as to how we're thinking about the next few months, and then extend an invitation on ways to get involved. If the project resonates, there will be several concrete ways in how you could shape its evolution. I'm the founder of Venture Out. It's a very small bootstrap studio with the vision of merging virtual reality and outdoor-themed movement-based pursuits. I'll tell you a little about the road and the journey and how I found Venture Out. I spent 23 years in project change and program management in big tech. About 6 years ago, I made a commitment to myself to figure out where I should be placing my energies. I was working for a great company, great coworkers, but I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't contributing in a way that I thought that was aligned to my deeper interests or my essence. So I began following my curiosities. If folks know who Stephen Kotler is, he's a big flow guy. Anyway, his simple task, follow your curiosities. So I ended up exploring different paths, dedicating each time 30 minutes each day, following one of those curiosities. And at some point, I trusted the process that those curiosities that I was going and studying would eventually overlap, and there would be enough spark and energy to create something creative. That exploration culminated about 4.5 years ago, so it wasn't a short process of figuring things out. When I put on a VR headset for the first time, I was absolutely blown away. And it wasn't because I was in something extraordinary. It was a proof of concept of a gas station where you fill up your car. It was a simple proof of concept. But what really captured the essence of that, my body didn't feel that I was actually in my living room. I was exported elsewhere. And so my nervous system perceived that I wasn't in my living room, I was at this gas station. And that was an aha moment for me, because at that point I started wondering, could we bring experiences to individuals via this platform that they otherwise wouldn't get to experience? I had experiences in adventure races as a participant, as a competitor, and as a producer. And so those experiences showed me how powerful the outdoors could be for learning, resilience, and getting to learn oneself. So I ended up thinking, could we leverage this VR platform to bring these outdoor experiences so people are a bit more comfortable in getting to the outdoors? And so this is where the vision of Venture Out came about, is to bring these two threads together, the outdoors and technology, not to replace the outdoors, but get people a bit more comfortable. Perhaps we could use it as a training mechanism or to give them experiences that they would not otherwise experience. And I gave 2 months notice at work. And so what are we building? We're building a VR simulation for orienteers to sharpen their skills and perform better on race day. This isn't a game. This is intended to develop as a training tool grounded in the fundamentals of orienteering. I should also share, it's been a bit of a journey getting here. In the second half of last year, we invited a group of orienteers to play test. And at that stage, we had a completely different experience. It looked more like a VR game with some elements of navigation. I was using the term orienteering very loosely. So when these play testers came in, they were confused. They didn't know what I was building. And so they was done, is this a VR game or is this supposed to be an orienteering simulation? We were very far from creating an orienteering simulation. And it became very clear that the orienteers, what they expected was an orienteering simulation. So we pivoted. We ended up doing 2 tracks, one a VR game and then one a VR simulation. Well, because we're such a small group that's bringing this vision to life, we didn't have the resources. So we completely pivoted to actually focusing our attention on creating this VR simulation earlier this year. So right now, the experience is catered to experienced orienteers, and we're intentionally building this in public, making sure this project creates real value before we seek the resource to scale to make a production-ready product. So what do we see as some of the challenges and potential benefits? In essence, is greater training opportunities. Be able to practice whenever you like, regardless of the weather, daylight, or travel constraints. Improve navigation accuracy, right? The more you practice, the better map reading skills, the faster terrain recognition leads to fewer errors out in the field. Faster skill acquisition, shorten up the learning curve. And then a potential to actually make this more accessible to perhaps a new community. So before we dive into the demo, I want to share where we are today. First, a big shout out to Kara, who's on this call. She's been integral in the development and embedding the feedback that we received with the orienteers. And special thanks go to the map makers who have contributed to this project. Jonathan Boyer, Bruce Moore, and Joseph Huberman. Our core features include real terrain generation. We are leveraging LiDAR and mapping data and embedding these in the immersive environment. We've embedded true orienteering logic. At the moment, we have an interval start, map and compass mechanics, rules that simulate actual competition, and we offer both solo and multiplayer. Multiplayer simply means you could have other people in the session and compete against. Our focus has been predominantly automating the terrain generation process by leveraging orienteering maps and recreating those terrain maps in our VR setting, as well as the features that the map makers have identified on these orienteering maps and do it in a way that allows us to scale. So we've automated a bit of the process. So a lot of the effort is on this workflow process, and the other element of focus is the orienteering game logic, including some of the tools that you're familiar with, whether it's the control points, whether it's the thumb compass, etc. We are building this for a standalone headset. So for folks that are not familiar, this is a Meta Quest 3 headset. It's a consumer product. It retails for about $500. There are 2 other versions. It's the Quest 3S, and there are 2 options, and that starts at $300. We want to simplify and not require that you need additional cables or your PC to compute. We are basically constrained as to how much we could render because of the processing capability, but we think we're at a point that it actually is doable. And the demo that I'll share will give you kind of a sense of where we're at. And so we're still early, but we have the foundational elements in place that we want to begin to expand the playtest community. And if we could prove out that this is or could be a valuable training tool, then we'll go out and get the resources to actually focus on the aesthetics, the textures, and the UI, basically the polish to make it production ready. Okay, so we are pushing the limits on this, but it's an exciting, we believe strongly that we could potentially, can make this happen. And so we're putting a lot of attention to this. Okay, so what should we do here? Some of the greatest hurdles that is to have this render in a frame rate that is sufficiently high enough that it's a comfortable experience to have it. Okay, the terrains that we have, we'll see. You could ask me questions a little bit later on exactly what type of files that I'm using to create the terrains, topography, etc. We'll get that in shortly. And so with that, let me go ahead and share what you could expect to see in the demo. There will be an interactive menu. This is a placeholder, but it'll quickly show you some of the options that you have before you actually get into the session, such as selecting the compass type, or it's the terrain, which hand you have the compass, the avatar, and some other items. Once I'm in the session, you'll see that it's actually quite immersive. I will try to remember not to move too quickly. As it projects, it may become a bit too fast, so I'll kind of tone it down a little bit, walk around, do a 360 so you got a sense that it is fully immersive. And if you haven't been in a VR headset before, it actually is quite experience, especially the first time that you actually put a headset on. I'll share a map that we're using for one of the terrains. We have multiple terrains based on real-world data. You'll see some of the compass options that we have. And then I'll go and orient the map in the scene and then get to one or two control points, so you got to get a sense of it. Let's see, what else should I think about here? Okay, so let me go ahead and share the demo, and then we could finish off with a couple of slides, and then we could open it up for questions. And so I'm just gonna get my table to rise a little bit here, so you're not seeing my legs only. I will be casting this. Joseph, if I end up not having a good view or perspective of what I'm showing, just let me know and I'll course correct. Okay. It'll just be a few seconds before I get this to cast. Okay. I will unshare and then share the browser window. Okay. Okay, you should be seeing a panel in front of me.
Looks good.
You do see it, yeah?
You see it, and it's moving around a little.
Okay. So you have a number of options here. One is the avatar. These avatars are placeholders, but you have a selection of various avatars that you could choose from. You could choose your particular type of compass. These compasses should look familiar to you. We have the ability to, well, do some various terrains. Focus on this. We do have a GPS on it for those that kind of want to see where they are positioned in the terrain environment. We have the ability to switch hands on the compass, and then there are different levels. And so this is a map that was provided in this particular case by Bruce Moore. This map has 3 courses on it. I'll just go with the orange version, the orange course. You'll notice the option of doing a solo or doing it as a group. You could also create a private session, name it, and then invite your friend to participate. I'll go and select start. Now I land in the tent, and keep in mind these are all temporary props, but it'll give you a good sense of where we're heading on it. There's a board that welcomes athlete. I know which one I am because I'm the only one in this room. If this were multiplayer, you would see the various individuals that are in the session. Your particular name and bib number would be highlighted in green. In the solo course, you have 2 options. The default is there's no time constraint. You could take as long as you want on the course, or we have this option, what is called time attack, which you would need to complete the course within a set time, and you have various options, as you could see here, to complete that. There is a welcome instruction on some of the rules, and then some movement instruction. This is a movement-based experience. You can move around with simply the joysticks that's on the controller. That is what we call the walk motion. But if we wanted to run or move faster along the course, we could quickly swing our arms. And so if this were multiplayer, we have the multiplayer call-up line, as you could see there up on the board. This is an interval start play style, and so your number would be called up, your bib number would be called up when it's ready for you to go. We have colliders embedded. You can't actually proceed until you have been called up. So I'm going to proceed up the start chute and head towards the map line. I would check in by waving my hand in the control box. I'd go and pick up whichever size map that I like to have. I'll go ahead and pick the larger one, and then I'll proceed. You'll notice that the countdown timer is activated, and once that gets to 0, that permits me then to actually go and trigger the start on this, and that's when the clock gets going. I have a clock or a watch that gets triggered once I start the race. You can see it's triggered. Now, this is when I need to make sure that I'm at the proper angle so you could see what I'm looking at. I hope you could see a map that I have in hand along with the compass. It's a functional magnetic compass, as you could see here. And so if I kind of do my walking motion, I'm going to go ahead and set this compass up and orient the map.
Show a little more map.
Okay, is that
There
okay?
you go, that's perfect.
Okay, so you could see here, the black lines, this is a map that was provided by Bruce, and it's a map that he's used in a prior event. So we're trying to emulate this environment in here, and we've been able to do that. And so I'm lining up the edge of the compass here. That's the direction of travel, as you guys are very familiar, or gals. And so I'm just going to go ahead and orient the map. And so it lines up with the northern lines that you see here in black. And then I'll go ahead and then proceed. I'm just going to trust that I'm going to get to where I need to get without looking up there, so you could see that. Well, actually, let me see. Oh, yeah, that's going to distort the compass. So I'm just going to head towards that direction. And you can see the clue sheet here. So we're really trying to be true to what that experience is, or the orienteering experience that you're familiar with. This is a bit odd not looking at where I'm going on there, but let me get there. And so if I wanted to run and do a running motion, I would swing my arms. I don't know if you could see it, but I'm actually swinging my arms on here. And you could see that there's detail here, right? And just keep in mind this texturing, these are placeholder textures. We're focused on textures once we've proven value. But this, for example, this is a trail. This brown texture is a trail. And so I'm walking. This is based on vector data that we pulled in from shapefiles. Oh, I just went through the bush. And you can see up front is the control point. And so we're really trying to get the detail that you see here, where the boulders or the stony ground is. You'll see the boulders where the trails are. You see the trails there. I'm coming up on the control point. And you see control point 1 has 54 as a reference number for this control point, and then do some similar here control point. And if I go to the second, here we go, line that up. Oh, I can just go around this approach here. Go out here. And each time we get a new map, we are building out a dictionary that ends up streamlining the process each time. So each time we get a new terrain map, we build this dictionary, and the terrain creation process gets faster. And so we're up to 3 terrains at the moment. And we'll talk a little bit about our next steps. And so these are our buildings or cabins there, and there's fences around here that have been basically brought in from the vector data. I think I'm not the best navigator, but hopefully let's see how far. There's some bushes around. Oh, there you go. Okay. And you can see that boulder, it's right next to the boulder, 55. I'll just wave there. And so that is information that was on the map that's brought in, and it's auto-populated these boulders there in the area. I'm not going to go through the whole process. It'll take me quite a bit of time, but you get the essence. When you get to the finish line, there is a check-in, a finished check-in, which then prints out your splits and your overall time there. So you get a sense of you do, and we have a leaderboard that ranks you based on whether or not you've completed the course successfully or not. You do get DNF if you don't do it in order. This is a sequential orienteering race. And yeah, let me go ahead and stop sharing here. Stop casting. Okay. Okay. Okay, let me go back here and share. Stop resending. Stop share. Close lines. Let me just make sure I'm still. Okay, I should be back to sharing my slides. If you could just give me a confirmation.
Yep, you got it.
Yep. Okay, excellent, good. Okay, and then from a roadmap perspective, ultimately we want to have some additional terrains on there. We're working to expanding the playtest group. It's a closed alpha, but we want to recruit more orienteers under this controlled access to validate the training value. And between getting the additional feedback and the additional terrains, we think we have enough to put it as pre-release availability on an open alpha perspective. So we share this more broadly to a larger community to test scalability and then gather wider feedback. And for us to really assess the market reaction to it, measure interest, gather insights, and then refine priorities. This will determine our next steps at this point. So we are heavily focused on trying to, in the next couple of months, to get those terrains and then expand the playtest group. It's open today if folks are interested in participating. That leads me to the next slide, and this is the last slide. And keep in mind, we are experimenting. We're doing something new with VR and creating a simulation that is an open world simulation where you have free roaming capabilities to validate its usefulness as a training medium. And so there are multiple ways if you like to get involved and influence where this project goes. There are 3 ways that you could do so. First, play testing. If you have a Quest 2 or 3 headset and you like to be involved and like to get involved in the early stages of product development where the product isn't polished, but you like to contribute and guide its development, then we'd love to have you join us on that. The project would only succeed if it's valuable to this community and the orienteers. Your feedback directly shapes the direction that we go. And that's what we mean by building in public. Second, as it relates to map making, maps are the content backbone of the experience of orienteering, and it's no different in VR. If you're a map maker and would like to see one of your maps in a VR environment, reach out to us or email maps@ventureout.com. This is potentially an opportunity to get more useful life out of something that you've done in the past and give people an opportunity to experience what you created. If that's of interest, we'll provide more information as you reach out. And then third, if you don't have a headset and you rather wait until it's a polished version, but you would like to provide some input in this direction, you can still help us by taking a short survey. Each of those QR codes relates to the respective area of contribution. This will give us insight as to what you value and our development plans. So I'd like to thank you. This project will only succeed. It's valuable to you, to this community, and as orienteers. So thank you very much. And at this point, I guess we'll open up to questions. If there are any.
John, go ahead.
So this may be way too banal, but I'm on a phone and the map was too blurry to read for me. I assume that wasn't the case for the people on large screens on computers.
And this was to the audience members, John, the question?
Well, I assume you have an idea how it would appear to people as well, but...
Yeah. In the headset itself, I don't know how it appeared there, but in the headset, it is detailed. Sometimes you really have to kind of peer into for some of the finer details. But we're able to.
I mean, that's actually kind of realistic.
Yeah. Okay.
At least for those of us with older eyes.
Yeah. And we have the ability to, and depending where the feedback goes, we could actually make these maps larger or smaller. However, so it's kind of like that. We're pretty it's flexible in that sense, depending on what people prefer.
I guess I have a second question to just begin the period of questions with as well. Could you describe the mechanics of what you're actually doing and what the controller is in your left hand that is affecting the orientation of the map and the compass?
Yeah, so there is a grab functionality. We created a sticky hand based on some of the feedback that we received. So rather than holding the map with a grip and one of the buttons here, the buttons here, the feedback was, I don't want to continually have to keep this button pressed down. Can we just do a way where when I pick up the map, it just sticks to the hand? So to hold the map, I'm not doing anything other than picking it up. If I want to switch hands, I use my other hand and I use the grip button. That's that button that's here. I could grab it out of the other hand. So from a sticky perspective, I just pick up the map and it sticks. And if you want to remove that stickiness, you grab it by the other hand. And so I basically moved the hand in a position where the compass was parallel to the map. And it's kind of like after a few tries, you kind of get the hang of it. And so my hand actually penetrates the map, and I place it such that the compass resides, you know, a half inch above the map. And it's once I let go, it sticks there. And so for me to orient the map, then I basically just I just turned my complete body to the point where it lined up, the needle lined up with the northern line. Now to run, to move, there's a thumbstick. I push the thumbstick forward or backwards if you want to move forward or backwards. I would keep that push forward and then swing my arms if I wanted to do a faster movement or that running motion that I was doing. John, did that answer your question?
Yes, I'm trying to decide what I think about the method for orienting the map in terms of realism.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, granted, we do tell beginners that you know, the map stays fixed in its orientation to the train, and you move your body around it.
yeah.
But in real life, you know, you're at the start, and the map is, you turn it over, it's completely the wrong direction. You actually have to study the map.
Yeah.
Look at your compass and turn it.
Well, you do.
So
it's similar. So what I did in VR is similar to what I do out in the real world. The way that one thing I can't do is I can't fold the paper. We don't have that texture of the map that, you know, typically that you may fold it in the real world. But everything else is similar to what I would do out in the real world as far as movement and aligning the compass.
yeah.
Well, that's my style. I mean,
I don't think not being able to fold the paper is any kind of big disadvantage or departure from realism that is truly important. But someone else must have a question.
Michael, go ahead.
Hey, Eli. I just wanted to say I don't really have a question, but wanted to let you know that Jonathan Boyer invited us to play test the product early on. And, you know, we're with Northeast Ohio Orienteering. And so far, the improvements you've made from the get-go have come a long ways. And it's a pretty exciting product from what we're looking at now.
Well, thank you, Michael. Yeah, we basically we were just taking the feedback that all of you provided, and that's kind of our development path there. We just want to make sure everything ties back to what you guys expect. So thank you for that. But it's an ongoing thing. But yeah, it's much further along than it was 8 months ago, 9 months ago, etc. And we hope to continue doing that, those iterations.
Yep. So I haven't play tested in the past. Probably about the last month, but in the last time I did was I think it's the Happy Days map that Jonathan supplied you with.
Yes.
And I've run that course many times, and it was kind of neat to kind of put my headset on and kind of run it. I actually stopped orienteering and I just ran the trails like I normally would out in the woods, and it was really neat.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, Eli, I was wondering, do you have the ability to, I'll say, to sort of zoom in the map? You know, like when you're orienteering and it's like, okay, I'm getting close, to sort of pull the map closer to your eye so that it takes up, I'll say, more of your screen space so you can see more detail or get a clearer view of an area, you know, realizing there's going to be, you're then losing some of your exterior, you know, terrain sense. You know, do you have that ability to sort of bring the map in and out to any?
It's definitely doable. One of our earlier versions, this was a VR game that we had, not the orienteering simulation, but a VR game. We had a little tablet. We had a zoom capability in the tablet, so you can actually zoom in or zoom out. Some of the feedback, the tablet is like, well, we don't really have a tablet out there, so we nixed it. But to your question, it's not a feature that we have now, but it is definitely doable. If the feedback comes back that we want to be able to zoom in, expand out that view, and what I'm hearing is rather than having the complete, essentially we're zooming into an area that you're in the vicinity of the area, and and expand that out and taking up more of the map as opposed to having the complete map, if that's what I heard. But that is doable.
John?
Great, thanks.
I'm curious whether you currently have or plan to add. I mean, you've got a 3D terrain model there that you made from the LiDAR.
Yeah.
Is there logic that causes you to go slower running uphill versus on the level, or on downhills that aren't so steep you slow down for safety?
Yeah, so we have built in an ability to adjust those speeds based on the defined polygon areas. And so at vegetation fight, we have logic that we could actually, reduce your max speed. And so we could influence speed either going uphill or downhill. We haven't spent tons of time yet of fine tuning that, but we have that built in as a capability. And so the idea would be is based on descent, going uphill or downhill, that's either going to make you go faster or make you go slower. Depending on the defined polygon areas will also influence the speed. If you go past water, that would influence speed. And so we do have that in mind. We'd like to be able to get a point where to track somebody's path and then evaluate how well they did and score it. It's not a feature yet, but if we get past this to validate that that we're building something of value, then it's a better question of any features there. But yes, so your short answer is yes, we can influence the speed based on the.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's definitely cool from the point of view of making the route choice and the consequences realistic.
Yeah.
That brings up another thought. Are like uncrossable features truly uncrossable, or is that a feature to be added?
We could add that. So if we look at it, some of these areas saying is do not enter, we could do some really interesting things there. We could penalize people if they've kind of gotten to an area that they shouldn't have gotten. Some of the items that have been features that have been defined in the orienteering map, we could put colliders there so you can't go through a boulder. Some of the tree, as you notice that you may have seen me kind of actually go through a tree, the trees are being spawned, other than the ones that are defined as like this unique vegetation or prominent tree, all of the trees are basically painted on the terrain, and those are painted in a random fashion. But anything that's in the define as a point in the orienteering map, we could put colliders, which would prevent you from actually going through. And so there's a couple of things that we need to kind of flesh out, but those point objects, those we could put colliders so you can't pass through. We could then put penalties in areas that people shouldn't be entering. We could stop people from actually falling off a cliff. If we could put, it kind of depends on what people prefer in general as to the best approach to do that, but we have flexibility.
It really does sound like you can eventually get to a pretty high degree of realism, which cool.
We're excited. The biggest challenge that we have is it's a balancing act of how much biome we place on the terrain. The more biome we do, the more rendering requirements there are. And so we're kind of like, well, if we put more biome, we're going to get a little bit less frame rate. But we're kind of like squeezing as much as we can, and we're experimenting a lot. And we're not fully optimized, and we're getting pretty decent FPS. We like to make the biome a bit denser. You notice there isn't any grass there, and grass is just a huge load on performance. And so probably won't do that until some sort of, some algorithms come up that we could actually crush down some of the processing power of that. But yeah, I mean, we think we're onto something, but ultimately the market will need to tell us if we are. And especially the orienteering community, if this is something that would be valuable. So early stage, but we think we have enough of the fundamental components of really getting this out and having people test it.
So one of the possibilities, or one of the things that happens in orienteering, is you get lost, and so you're somewhere on the terrain, but you're not exactly sure where you are on the map. And so I'm wondering if there's a connection between the terrain and the map while you're running, can you get unconnected where you're then going to have to try to relocate by looking at the features that are around you?
I don't know if I captured that entirely. If you could just rephrase that.
So I think that when you were running, your
Yeah.
location on the map showed where you were. And what
Wasn't
happens?
that the GPS that he could turn on or off?
Yes, that I could turn on and off. Yes.
So if you turn the GPS off, then you have to keep track of where you are on the map based on the terrain that you're seeing.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And
The other question,
yeah, sorry.
I was gonna say, the other question I have is, would you be able to, someone who is like in bed and in a hospital or something, are they going to be able to do this and manage the moving through the terrain?
Yes, they'd just be moving slower. And so we have the walk function really was just pushing, if they have the use of their fingers or their thumb, it's just pushing this thumbstick forward, and that's the walk motion. I ended up running, but yes, they can move.
John?
Yeah, I don't want to monopolize this, but if other people aren't jumping in. So you're building a 3D model of the train from LiDAR that you process yourself, and you're taking vector graphics from OCAD files, I presume, or maybe you can do OCAD or Open Orienteering Mapper equally well. I think you said you turned them into shape files in order to work with them.
Yeah.
Can I assume that means that you really need for maps to be, that people want to give you to be accurately georeferenced, so those will match up, perfectly without you having to finagle things?
Yeah. So in the event that the map maker has the LiDAR or a DEM file, a digital elevation model, that would work. If they don't, then I have a way to go, and then there's open source data where I could pull the USGS data and download the DEM files, 3DEP. That's typically LiDAR. And so I could do that. Where I get the vector data from is actually from the OCAD or the Open Orienteering map, where I just export it in the specific file types that I need. That gives me the vector data. I bring in that vector data into our game engine, and then we're leveraging a software that has been catered for our use case, where we ingest both the digital elevation model, because that's the input file type that we use in the engine, and then the vector data, and we run it through a terrain generator where we've mapped out where you see this, do this, like where you see vegetation fight, plot this type of texture on there. And that dictionary will get larger and larger. And so each time we get a new map, there's probably 70%, 80% that's already on there, but then you have the additional 20, 30% that then we would add to the dictionary. And so each time it's a faster map making process for us once we have the specific file types. So there are 3 file types that he'd asked the the map makers to provide. And with that, we could fairly, within a few days, create the terrain and plot the feature set. That's
maybe you haven't tried it all, but I guess a consequence is that if you had some old map, like walk courses from the 80s or 90s before the LiDAR era, that was from photogrammetric data and isn't perfectly georeferenced.
Yeah.
It might just be, you might not be able to make everything line up between the vector data and the digital elevation model perfectly enough for it not to be noticed that there's things a little bit out of place.
There's been, a year ago, I didn't really know much about mapping. So this has kind of taken me on a really interesting journey and leveraging tools. But it's definitely a lot of little attention to detail that you need to pay attention to, whether it's the ESP, whether it's some specific coding on the mapping or the location. You need to make sure that matches up with all the the vector data and the map and the underlying DEM file map or topography with the vector data. But Yeah. I don't know. If we get an 80s map, we'll give it a go and kind of check it out.
Well, there's a lot of newer maps to work with first,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I totally, yeah, I prefer doing
if this takes off someday, you might want to be recreating the 1981 walk final for everyone in the world to run.
Yeah, I mean, the vision is bigger. We're landing on this particular one because this helps us develop a mapping solution. And if we're able to crack this well enough, that we could leverage this in other use cases out there, and it could be, and other use cases. So it could lead to really some interesting things, experiences.
One of the characteristics of orienteering when you can't see all the detail on the map is having a magnifying glass that's attached to the compass. And so, I mean, unfortunately, with a real map, you can't just zoom in like you would like to, although there's plenty of times I'd like to try. But just swinging pressing a button somewhere that swings a magnifying glass over your map, so that just that spot increases in detail.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Michael, go ahead.
So I could vouch for the speed of the gameplay because I ended up choosing to actually swim across the pond to get to a control because it was a lot faster than going on land. But also, I was wondering if the eventual plans are to maybe include something like a live locks replay of your routes, and you could see other people's routes when you finish up.
Yeah, totally. Well, first we started doing the individual players map because what we would think would be a great feature to have is saying based on recording the route that you actually took, having a quote unquote a perfect route, and then doing comparison on there, basically a score of some sort, to say optimal route versus your route, and and kind of help people gauge, and then potentially add other folks' route. And I think that would be a great little feature to have, to see out everybody's taken, right, on that front.
Exactly.
The first, I think, would be great as a feedback loop, to kind of compare to optimal routes. Any other questions? Please take a snapshot of this. If you're interested in being a part of the playtest, sign up. There's a little form, quick form you can fill out on there, especially if you're into being early and contributing and like to contribute to evolving things. This is a great opportunity there. Or if you're a map maker, we like to get to 8 to 10 maps in preparation and getting to this open alpha that we mentioned by early November, and that would definitely help us on the way. We could test things out, and then we could have some interesting. Anyway, I think it could lead to some interesting things for you as a map maker too, going forward afterwards, if we could prove this out.
This is a very random, tiny detail question, but have you created a point feature the way that it would look if there was a charcoal platform in the terrain?
If there was a what? I didn't catch
charcoal burning platform.
I don't understand what that is.
It's usually on a hillside. It's a round area, maybe up to 10 or at most 15 meters in diameter, that's been flattened, which was where someone made a big mound over a pile of wood and burned it in anoxic conditions to make charcoal.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I made a map once. It was basically just pure base map because you could see every single one of those things in the LiDAR.
Yeah, we could totally do that because what we're bringing are 3 types. We have point data, we have line data, and then we have polygon. And so if it's a point data, we just need to come up with a texture that would be aligned with
that. I mean, it might actually show up well enough in the LiDAR data that you could model the shape exactly.
The LiDAR data will put the shape of the topography. That it won't tie back to the texturing. The texturing, we tie it to the vector data. The vector data, if it's identified on the map as charcoal burnt area, then we could
Yeah.
align
I mean, you might not have to do anything. These things are usually the same color as the surrounding terrain, unless you like dig through the leaf litter until you get to the old, soot.
Yeah. The flat should come in. There's on the LiDAR, like 2 of the 3 maps, we have it at 2.5 meter resolution. The one other one is at 30 meter resolution. So if we get that one at the 2 meter, that then should be.
Yeah, that would show it.
Yeah.
Have you implemented control descriptions?
Yes. You're saying what we're doing is we're aligning to the clue sheet, and so for example, in that first control point, was the I think it was 54 was the reference number on actually on the control flag. So it'd be there if there's something that's identified, for example, a boulder as a point date on the orienteering map, and that's next to the control flag, that would show the boulder would show up next to the control flag.
I mean, I meant both that the flag would be in relation to the feature as described.
Yes.
But also whether you have, I guess we didn't see it, so this must be a future thing, whether you hope to implement the mechanics of, raising your forearm to look at your control descriptions that you have in your holder there, or something like that.
Yeah, right now the clue sheet is embedded on the map. That's a feature that folks want on the arm. That is really doable.
I mean, I guess it's hard since you're pumping the arms to control your speed.
Right now you notice that we're just half body avatar. From your perspective, you only saw my hands and I basically didn't have full body. We do want to go to full body avatar, so you can actually see your legs as well as your arms. And if we have full arm, then we could potentially add that clue sheet on the arm as well, if that's something that from the feedback.
I mean, just if you want to get as close as possible to simulating real world orienteering technique.
Okay.
One of the other aspects that John touched on, a lot of times the control, a lot of times I think like the control sheet could just say boulder other side, because it's usually opposite the side you're coming from. So is your simulation, you're coming up toward, you see the boulder, but you don't see the flag until you get around past the boulder and then turn your head?
Yeah, we could trigger it that it's within a range of a player. So like you can't see it from 100 meters out. You could do it, you could structure it in a way that, okay, if you're within 10 meters of it, then appear.
No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is if you've got a boulder that's one of your point features, and you've got a control that's on the north side, and the control description says boulder north side.
Yeah.
So it's not that it would be hidden from a different distance. It would be hidden until you got past the boulder and looked to your left or right.
Yeah.
Saw the other side of the boulder. That's where the control would be.
Yeah. If they're coming, it depends on the angle that they're coming from, but that would play out because we're plotting the orienteering point relative to, so the vector data that we're getting for the boulder, we're getting vector data for the flags. And so it's a question of where are you attacking that flag from? And so if they're coming from an orienteering flag that they shouldn't see the flag until they got around the boulder, the same would hold true in the VR experience.
Good. Andrea.
With many symbols like boulders, you'll have a catalog of boulders that you can pick from. What do you do is man-made, the 2 man-made X and circles will you pick at random something, or would you have to know every X or circle what it is?
In this stage, we're basically need to come up with an asset that represents it. It may not be like the polish asset. So for example, like with rootstock, we'll put a rootstock there. If it's a man-made object, we'll plot a man-made object there. And so at this point, we're kind of mapping the asset to whatever that control feature number is. And so if it's, I don't remember all the numbers but if it's a prominent man-made feature, we'll put a prominent man-made feature out. And then we have the possibility of randomly selecting what that man-made feature is, right? Some of it is pretty obvious, like a fence or a broken wall or ruins of that nature, and then we'll populate there. So at this point, we're not trying to zero in on the perfect asset to align that, but an asset that is representative of one of those symbols at this juncture. Andrea, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, in the sense as like when you there's certain things like fences.
Yeah.
Those are, yes, they're man-made, but they're in terms of what a symbol is called, that would be a fence, not a man-made.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
You're like the man-made object. You were saying that okay, I can't think of anything right now.
Yeah, like think of like a water tank, something.
Now, yeah, that would probably would be a blue X,
Okay, yeah.
blue star, right? But I'm thinking like, I don't know, in Switzerland they had the big statue, inflated statue or something like that. Things like where it's like, okay, something out of the blue that is man-made, but it's with the X's and circles are not defined. That's where I thought you may want like a bigger catalog of things to pull in.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Each time that we get a new map and we get these new symbols, then we kind of say, okay, this is an asset that we need to create or have. And so it's a question of just building that or getting an asset that represents that. So that's not a difficult thing to add to the dictionary. But yeah, each time we get the map, it's like expanding. I think we're up to like 180 features, and that'll continue getting bigger and bigger. But yeah, that's definitely doable.
Well, if the person who designed the course on the control card was also able to add text to it for you, not for the runner, but they could add a text that when you saw man-made object, they might put in the word bench or bars, chin-up bars or whatever the object happened to be. That would be a bench, and then you could either add it or simulate it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, if they play it, it makes it easier for us to then adhere to that or come up, align with what they're suggesting.
Okay, John.
Just to expand on that a bit, I mean, man-made features can be like old cars abandoned in the woods or drums, but you can have some fun with it. They could be randomly sometimes a garden gnome in the middle of the forest for no obvious reason.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, that's totally doable. I mean, we're up for any idea. I mean, if people think something would be kind of neat to do, or like just surprise, right, or things of that nature.
Michael.
So while playtesting, sometimes I record the experience, and I've tried to send you some of the recordings of what I'm seeing, but the file sizes seem to be just too large. What's the best way to get those files to you so you could see what I'm seeing?
You could do Google Drive if you load it up, and then I could do a folder, and then we could share that way if that works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andrea.
How do you deal with out of bounds? I mean, would you do it like you do it with the obstacles? Or, I mean, that is one of the big things that, especially in the United States, our not just juniors, our athletes don't really have a lot of sprint training. And so having something like this for sprint training would be kind of awesome. But one of the things is route choice and being trapped into areas that you cannot go and stuff like that. So I was just wondering how that could be handled.
How would you like it to be handled?
I don't know. that is more like a question for the athletes could, but you know what I mean? It's like, okay, your map will say that you can't go into that alley or you can't go into there, but you end up going in there.
Yeah, I mean,
qualified.
Yeah, the beauty with doing something in VR, there's a lot of flexibility, a lot more flexibility in the real world. And so we could do it either that there's a collider, you can't actually go there, or if they go there, we could give demerit, we could like deduct points, which is interesting. Just like if you got into out of bound area and you got in the area that you shouldn't be, we could say, okay, you could be DNF'd. We could trigger a number of things, DNF, reduction of points, add time, etc. So basically, we'll go with what the crowd wants us to do on that front.
If you're
Yes, and-
if you're
Oh, sorry.
running and you're running uphill, is there some sort of a algorithm that says, "Hey, you've been running for an awful long time. We're going to make you a little more tired now, and you're going to be slowing down"?
Yeah, we initially had what we called a health meter on this, and I'm trying to think. We ultimately removed it, but it basically had so much energy that got depleted. And so if you were running, you would deplete faster. If you were at rest or walked, it kind of, you top off and you get more hydrated, etc. From a speed, we can manipulate. We do manipulate the speed if you're going uphill or downhill. We can add a health meter if we're able to add a health meter if that's where what folks want to see on there, where they would need to kind of recharge their batteries to do so. But at this moment, we don't have that. We had it, but we removed it.
Andrea?
Yeah, I saw Alex on the call. So he just today in the World Cup, out of 17, no, I forget how many teams there were, like 15 that 4 runners per team finished. 17 teams had at least one that mispunched, and that it was a sprint, and it was. So I'm going to see why, but probably some of it has to do with some of them were marked disqualified. So that is where we're lacking training. So Alex may be able to say something from JWalk, but what could be help with that kind of training.
Yeah, right now we do have logic built in. So if somebody kind of jumps a flag or they don't complete the course and they get to the finish line check-in, they're DNF'd. And so there is some logic in for interval start where you have sequential flags. We do have logic in there to successfully complete the course.
Well, Eli, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've pretty much run out of time now. I think it was a very good presentation, and hopefully some people and through word of mouth will get in touch with you so that this can get further developed.
Awesome.
I've got a quick question, if I may.
Yes, Matthias.
Sure, go ahead.
Is there any prospect of ever getting to a stage where you can connect this to treadmill, so you can have the actual running exhaustion?
Yeah, that's totally doable. In fact, one of the 360 travel providers is well aware of what we're working on. They want us to be part of it. We're holding off until we prove the value proposition of this, and then properly develop it. But yeah, I mean, yes.
It could be done.
Yes. Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much. Please reach out if this resonates and you want to be part of it. We will take any contributions and support and help on making this a reality. And so join as a play tester or a map maker or simply complete the survey. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna stop the recording now. Anyone who wants to stick around and just chat is welcome to stay. But the official presentation is over.
Great. Thank you all. Bye.